Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Soulful Speaking podcast. Dana Baugh is back again with us today. She's incredibly curious, so she's going to ask me some questions that she's curious about and you may be curious about. And before we dive into that, Dana, I'm curious, what has it been like for you? What has come up since you appeared the first time?
Yeah. Well, it is connected to what I'm curious about. When I was on your podcast as a guest, I very much was holding the mantra and the practice or process, intend, align, invite, because it works very well. It's a great process to ground me and guide me. And I just had realized when I was on as the guest, it was like I felt like I really got into intend. I was into align a bit, and then I feel like align was sometimes hard to hold on to. The thing I held on to was the intend, and so it then tied to my curiosity about, we've known each other for a while. And I had the good fortune early on to meet you and go through the process with you of your process for supporting speakers as they find their voice and put it out there in the world in a authentic, meaningful, and impactful way. And I have not found anything else quite like this. So I have big gratitude about that. When I first met you, we went through like a step. It was like 7 steps. There's deeper process. And then fast forwarding over time, it became intend, align, invite, which I really appreciated because that I can remember and hold on to. What happened to me when I was the guest speaker speaking was I realized I know the mantra, I know what it means, but some of the deeper nuances, it's like I've forgotten them. And I want to sort of reconnect, because the mantra is beautiful to have the short version to hold on to, but I want to reconnect the short version of intend, align, invite with the deeper nuances. And I'm not sure, but I feel like what happened for me was, again, I was getting some of the things going on, but not all of the things going on. So,
Yeah. Yeah. As you're talking about it right now, I can't remember if I've said this to you before. One of the reasons that I shifted from, it was a 7-step path with tools and things on each step of the path. And I was working with all 7 steps, wanting people to remember them. And then I presented at a conference right after a good friend of mine, Meryl Shaw. She was presenting on the content of speaking and the power of 3. So when I use those words with you now and talk about how powerful 3 is, she was the one who used the phrase, the power of 3 first, and I started borrowing it from her. We both have a theater background. And neuroscience says that 3s are sticky for our brains. And that's sort of ingrained in us. We create stories innately with a beginning, a middle, and an end. A lot of our flags have 3 colors in them. So here in the United States, it's red, white, and blue. And I decided to lean into that because and to be honest, there was also a bit going on for me in the early days of even me thinking, I need to give them every single thing that I have in order for this to be valuable. And over time, I let go of more and more and more and more and more of that. So the, stickiness of the power of 3 and me letting go of feeling like I needed to give you every single thing that could possibly be of value, cram as many words as I could into an experience. So I leaned into that and I looked at the 7-step path, and it just sort of rose up one day that it was like, oh, if I just made the outline a little different,
Mm.
this naturally fits into 3 things: intend, align, invite. So the tools and the other things are still there. And what I, and I frequently talk about it being like, if we're watching Steph Curry's basketball shot and we hire a shooting coach, they might give us 3 things to focus on: bend your knees, look at the back of the rim, and follow through. And you can be thinking that while you're shooting. And eventually, mastery is not thinking about it.
Mm. Yeah.
Steph Curry is not thinking, bend my knees, look at his body just knows it. So I feel like when I work with people now, I give them this intend, align, invite 60,000 foot view. We do some things and break it down and go more into intend and deal with soul suckers, which are the things, soul suckers and our other parts that might be not setting the intention that our highest self would set.
Yeah.
Really work with aligning the body, the breath, and the energy. Really work with what does it mean to invite when you're in a crowd, so that the body is getting a deeper experience. And then we come back up to the phrase intend, align, invite. And I was even shooting an episode with someone where we took that 60,000 foot view, we went down into it and we played with it. And then we came up and he was going to speak again. And I kind of reminded of all the pieces. And I saw that overwhelmed look on his face. And I went, okay, we just experienced intend, align, invite. And I said something like, trust that your body has a lived experience of what that means,
Yeah.
and just go for it. And I'm here to be your shooting coach who says, well, you could bend your knees a little more. You could strengthen the inviting a little more. Or I was craving a deeper breath. It's like having the shooting coach who looks at what pieces are still not fully feeling like they're in Steph Curry mastery.
I really appreciate that. Um, how you teach now, it sounds like you do take people back to those roots, but then you, like you said, you just sort of ask them to put it down and trust themselves, and then coach. That's how you reconnect them back to the roots. I'm hearing is by seeing what would add to something.
Yeah, more and more. And as you're talking to me right now, it's occurring to me that the more I'm trusting myself, the more I'm actually doing things a little differently and inviting the people that I'm working with to step into a state of trust.
Mm.
And it also reminds me of how my favorite acting instructor ever, Richard Side, how he used to deal with the inner critic. And every actor in the world, every actor that I know wants to get up on stage and be completely and utterly in the moment,
Mm.
what the rest of the world knows as the flow state.
Yeah.
And we want to hate the inner critics. We don't want them to be there. And he was the first person who kind of drew a dividing line in the sand. There's a point to the inner critics. When you're in rehearsals, there's a time that you want to try a thing and then criticize, critique, judge,
Mm.
assess. What did I like about that run through and what did I not like about that run through? And everybody's doing that, from the director to all of the actors. Your inner critics are doing some judging. You feel it, something feels off, and then you figure out what was it that felt off, and then you go in and do it again. And then at a certain point, it's time to jump in without that voice. And particularly in theater, you as the actor jump in without that voice 100%. And it feels like a kid playing make believe. And that's why we all want that in the moment feeling. And you trust your director to then critique anything that you might need for you. And I believe that whole process from actors to speakers is much better when you have that trust between the director and the actors or someone watching your speech, and that it's all better when the actor or the speaker is in a state of that kind of vibrance and aliveness. That's how I work as a director. I don't tell them where to move. Like, I don't come in on day one with, like, on this line, you're going to move over to the plant. I watch them play and move, and then I shape it. And then later on, I invite them to play like the children, just going for it, trusting that if something isn't working, I'm out here to give you the fine tuning and the adjustments to have it work even better. And to me, the aliveness is the most important part. It's how I'm built. So that's why I would rather start with, let's help everybody to be really alive and connected. And then as a director, any finishing touches are much, much easier than chasing every single detail of how they move, what they say, when they cross over to the plant, when they sit down. Yeah.
What's so interesting when you share that? One, I recognize it because I recognize that's how you have coached me, and appreciate it because there's something so makes I think it makes people very self conscious, that other kind of way of doing it, like stand here, say this, do this, move this way. But I do know, are there still people that, and particularly from speaking and acting, that coach that way? I mean, I'm just curious, how does that even work? It just feels like it brings up so much self consciousness and just performing without heart. I don't know if that's true.
It does happen. Um, I don't actually know how many speaking coaches are still working that way. I have a feeling they're out there because they are out there in theater.
Okay.
And so I will say this. I have been in a production very recently where the director's style was more of a precision based,
Mm.
at times leading toward micromanaging rather than letting us be the clay and play and find some things. And we were all asking, because we're a physical ensemble based innovative theater company, and we're used to a certain level of just try a thing a million times. And it was incredibly challenging. And I think people on both sides learned a lot.
Mm.
And as an actor, it is our job to work with whoever the director is.
Yeah.
So if they're, it's your job to take how they're asking you to do it, to try it with 100% commitment. And also to say, I tried it with 100% commitment and here's why it's not working for me.
Mm.
And it's still not my favorite. It's very hard for me to do. And in this particular production that I'm thinking of, the end result for me from the day after opening and onward, we got this amazing review. Audiences loved the show. On opening day, people were looking at me and saying, "Oh, what an incredible performance." And with the ones that I knew and trusted, who were also, like my husband and other core members who were not in the show, I kind of went, just wait until we've breathed into this a little bit. Like, great. I'm happy that it looks so amazing on the outside. And when we debriefed it, I did tell people, like, I'm 52 years old. I've got a lot of adult life post college. I have never, ever been that tight on an opening night. Ever. Now, I did work through it. Like on the day after opening, which happened to be when a lot of the reviewers came, it was like I was craving surrender so much that it didn't take as long. Like I thought it was going to take a while to breathe into it. It's like I just went, I'm jumping into the sandbox and I'm going to do the shape that we have. And I'm going to completely open and soften and surrender into it, including like all of the muscles in my physical body. I felt more like me.
Okay. Wow. Again, what I'm hearing is there are different ways to do it, but you sort of know what works for you, and well, it's really interesting. I'm
Yeah.
curious about if we just took them one at a time, like how they have changed for you over time, like what intend means to you now, and just how that might have evolved.
Yeah. There's a lot less words. Intend originally came the words, and they're in my book. If anybody out there reads it, they're all the old ones are in there. So it was root in a sense of purpose. And I still love the phrase root in a sense of purpose. And yet, when I'm attempting to give it to people who can be stepping out on a stage and going, oh my God, what did Lauri tell me? Intend is much shorter.
Yeah,
And so when we're doing intend, that's when you can probably feel like, oh, hey, I vaguely remember when we first started working together, there was something about roots and values and purpose. I'm still bringing those words in and bringing those concepts in. And now it feels more like it comes up when it's in the room,
mm,
rather than me thinking that I need to use the words root in a sense of purpose. And I need to tell you what a value is. And we need to come up with what is your life purpose statement. I I start with what serves the people, and then the other things that can sort of take that deeper and make it richer come up when someone in the room needs it, or even more so if a wave of people in the programs that I'm leading all feel like, they're saying they don't know what their purpose is, they don't know why they're here, they're called, but they don't even know why they're called. Then we might go off and do a whole values excavation exercise.
I really love that because again, it's trusting what people need, and I also think it's powerful if you start with intend, and people are experiencing that. You can sort of check in to see if I'm, from my own experience, having been in classes, people just sort of naturally talk about purpose. And then you can build from there versus which is more powerful than you giving us a bunch of stuff to remember.
Yeah. Yeah. And helping you, if you don't need to remember it so much when you're speaking as it needs to be there,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
you be connected to it.
I love how you
Yeah.
just said that.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I really appreciate that because as you're sharing this, that is, I hadn't thought of those words, but that is what I'm wanting. I don't want to memorize it. I hadn't thought of it that way. The way my brain usually works is like, I'm going to memorize this and then I'll, have it to connect back to. But it is, I just want it to be there and I want to feel connected to it. So I really
Yeah.
appreciate it.
Yeah. Like we don't need Steph Curry to turn and give us a dissertation on why bending your knees, how the knee functions, all that kind of stuff. We just want Steph Curry to shoot the ball and have it go in the net. Steph Curry only wants to shoot the ball and have it go in the net. At some point, I shifted, or over time shifted, to knowing Dana doesn't really want to turn and give a dissertation on what a soul's purpose is and what values are and how those relate to the moment that she's speaking.
Yeah.
Dana wants to speak. At some point, if I teach other people to do what I do, then those people might actually need to be able to not give a dissertation, but to answer questions and to help people find those things the way that I do. But if you're not going to teach it, you don't need to know all that stuff. You need to know what helps you put the ball in the basket? What helps you speak in the way that you want to speak?
And I'm also hearing you say when someone gets there on their own, um, they are, have the power of the three, the intend, align, and invite. And an intend is they're playing back what they're experiencing, and they have this talk about a sense of purpose. Yeah, that I'm just thinking about how it can come. That's how it can come out, and that's all they
Yeah.
need. Yeah,
Yeah. And they it's like they know what they want to have happen in the room. And a lot of times we end up feeling a sense of purpose when we set an intention.
yeah,
If anybody is ever confused about what intention should I set for this talk versus that talk versus this podcast experience, that might be a time where I might say, what's your soul's work? How does it connect to your life purpose? How does this moment connect to your life purpose? And then they get a clarity over which intention they're going to go with on that day from how does it connect to your greater life purpose?
I appreciate you saying that because that is another thing I have that, that has caught me in a moment of like when we're doing the intend. Is it like a lot of times what comes to me is I want clarity and connection. I want clarity for myself. I want clarity for people who are listening, and I want to
Mm-hmm.
feel connection, and I want them to feel connection. And sometimes I'm like, well, that can't always be what it is. So I was, curious about like, okay, what I'm doing now is I sort of just see what comes up. But I appreciate how you ask that question to help possibly something different come up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And I love both. Letting it come up. There are times where our intuition is really talking to us nice and loud. If we ask ourselves, what do I want my intention to be today? We feel something, we hear something, we just know. And then there are other days where we're a little more off or it's higher stakes. And then having a question like, how does this moment connect to my life purpose? Can help kind of cut through our own static.
Yeah. Would you mind talking about the other two, Align, again, just as how has that evolved for you?
Yeah. Align is aligning the body, the breath, and the energy with that intention and with our fullest expression. In the old 7-step model, there were 3 different separate steps out of the 7. Embody what's important, breathe life into the experience, and energize yourself and the space. Still like those words.
Yeah,
They might still come out at some point. And if the end result now, which it is, and as I'm saying this, I think I just simplified and I didn't know what is true that's about to come out of my mouth
mm,
when I simplified. If the goal is for someone to more just be able to feel it and do it, feel this way of speaking and do it instead of doing it their old way.
yeah,
Like if I used to shoot a 3-pointer with my elbow out really wide and not bending my knees, and I've taught myself this new way, and the goal is just go in the game and shoot it the new way where the ball goes in. Having embody what's important, breathe life into the experience, energize yourself in the space is very different from align and knowing what that means for your body, your breath, and your energy.
yeah,
Because you've broken it down, but you don't need that many words to be going through your head to go align.
yeah,
And I am remembering now, I don't remember if it was one of your classes or another one. We would do some things where we played with sounds and aligning the body, aligning the breath, and aligning the energy, and making om sounds and S's and Z's. And there was another moment where it was time for people to speak again. And they started to get that, like, wait. And I said, do you feel the thing that you just did when we were making the Z sounds?
Mm.
Do that while you're talking. Oh, okay, that I can do. That's the difference between embody what's important, breathe life into the experience, and energize the space, and align. Okay, let's just do that and then we'll give it a go.
Yeah. I'm going to play back just to make sure that I'm catching some things because I just, yeah, find that really interesting. So now you're trusting that you don't have to start with all of that foundational thing. You can say align and the short version of what that means, as you just did.
Yeah.
Then, as they start doing that, you might say, let's do some Z's, let's do this or that. So you
Yeah.
can, okay,
Yeah. Based on what's actually happening with aligning body, breath, and energy for that person.
okay,
And as you ask that question, it's also trusting. I would say this a lot, and I still say this, that we came in as babies and our bodies, our breath, and our energy were aligned for fullest expression when we were born.
yeah,
So we knew it. And then we got taught not to do it. So we don't necessarily need the 10,000 plus hours that a great basketball player is going to need to become great because we're remembering rather than learning fresh. And I feel like on some level, I started giving a, intend, align, invite, and align body, breath, and energy, and a snippet of what that was pretty high level, pretty quick, because I'm helping people remember and reconnect with what they already knew when they were a baby.
yeah. Is there, you mentioned before when we were talking about intend, about there's this idea of our parts, our soul suckers that can jump into the dance. There are, and we're trying to get our highest self to be the one in the driver's seat. In this part of the process of align, is there anything different happening with this dance between your parts and the higher self?
Hmm. What a beautiful question. So, what happened in my body when you asked that question is I feel like setting the intention really helps. So, I have a background in theater, voice for the theater, not singing, but voice for the theater to project enough that people can hear you and feel you in the pre microphones, in the floor, and on every single actor's body era. And so, theater voice people, they're doing this align body, breath, and energy thing.
Hmm.
That's what they're doing. And I went to a conference once and I brought in the idea of intend, probably in an older form. So I'm working with professional breathers and colleagues who do the same align body, breath, and energy thing that I do, but I only did intend.
Ah,
So I had them get up and do something. And then I worked with intend with the whole group. And then I had them get up and do it again. And they were shocked and in awe and amazed that without touching anybody's rib cage or talking about the breath, they were all breathing deeper and had more ease and aliveness in their performances.
oh, interesting. Wow.
So that's why intend always comes first. Even if somebody has a strong intention, we're still going to visit it for, 80% of the people in the room can use revisiting it.
Yeah.
When we start to work deeply with aligning the body, the breath, and the energy, when you asked that question, I felt for myself and others memories of when it feels vulnerable and the parts want to come back in to protect us.
Yeah.
Because out in the outside world, we've been suppressed and armored and protecting ourselves and hiding and doing what all the other bodies seem to be doing. And when we open up, when we align our bodies, I talk a lot about opening the heart. Well, that can feel really vulnerable.
Yeah.
So then, we might have an inner critic thought, or we might feel more of a visceral sensation. And it's like a part of us is wanting to shut that back down. And we're not even necessarily having the thought of this is dangerous. But a part of us feels danger and wants to shut it down.
Yeah. Complete.
And same thing with breath and kind of keeping the energy small. I feel like some of the parts are in there trying to shut down the vulnerability and the expansion. And for some people, they might have thoughts about that. And for some of us, it's more like we start feeling a whole lot of visceral sensations and fighting impulses. Like my heart wants to open, but then another part is trying to shut it down at the same time. And I, of course, always get really excited when that confusion happens. For the poor person that's experiencing it, it's incredibly uncomfortable. But when that confusion hits the body, the part of the person that's willing to experience the change is actually already a step ahead of the parts that want to stay the same, or that kind of like muscle confusion would not be happening.
Yeah. I'm going to tell you what comes up for me when you share that, because being a guest on your podcast, I did experience that, where at some point it's like, whoa, parts are wanting to come in and not have us be so vulnerable, not have the heart open so much. And on the one hand, it is extremely uncomfortable. And the thought is, oh my gosh, I'm going to blow this because this is happening. The other thought that came in was, what a great learning experience. Like, to learn what this feels like, to pay attention to it happening, even though it was like I sort of didn't want it to happen, but it was like, wow, this is to really understand what this feels like, and then how to come back. And I have no idea what I actually did to come back, except probably, I don't know, I wasn't consciously thinking about it. But what do you help people with to come back when that happens?
Yeah, I immediately wanted to ask you, how did you come back? What happened? It can depend on the person, and the kind of overarching headline that I want the world to know is that the way out is through.
Mm-hmm.
When you feel that moment of, I feel vulnerable, different parts are trying to shut me back down, it's not to do what the rest of the world is doing, which is shut down, numb up, put a smile on your face, pretend to be fine.
Yeah.
It's feel the vulnerability. And a lot of times it's reconnecting back to the intention and finding a connection with someone in the room, or the knowing that someone in the room needs to hear what you have to say,
Yeah.
which can help the person experiencing it to go through. Because in reality, we all deserve to be seen for who we really are. And for a lot of my clients who have some kind of a soul-driven mission, they like to serve others. So when it can be both, you, Dana, deserve to be seen and heard and felt for who you are. And there's somebody out there who also needs what you're bringing. That makes it enough for the person to keep going. Whereas if I just said, well, Dana, you're a human who's beautiful. You are 1 in 8 billion soul. You deserve to be seen and loved exactly as you are. You might be like, that's nice. I need this to be for me and others in order to have the courage to keep going through all that sensation.
Yeah, that's so true. What's really resonating with me is when you talked about the way through, when that happens, when you're speaking, is to not try to get away from the feeling, which is absolutely what happens, at least to me first. It's like, get out of here, push it. I always have this image of that I have a big beach ball and I'm holding it underwater, like, get down, which
Yeah.
takes a lot of energy and attention.
Yeah.
And the way through is like to feel it like, oh, that's there now, and not let it take over, but to like, oh, that whatever it is. Yeah, that
Yeah.
it feels, yeah,
Yeah. And harnessing it and channeling it into the experience is
yeah,
where the real charisma, presence, energy in the room comes from.
yeah,
Whereas shoving the beach ball down and I'm good, there's no beach ball here, we're holding back what can be the charisma if we do that.
yeah. You're just reminding me. I don't remember what was it. It was last year. I went to meet with someone that a very high profile person in Washington, D.C. It felt like a very high stakes situation. And they were like, so tell me about yourself. And I remember, and had thought about it before that they might ask me this. And so launching into, some kind of credentials, that pedigree kind of thing. And all of a sudden, I'm like, oh my God, there's a voice in my head. It's like, you're a talking head. Like, I couldn't feel anything from here down. And I'm just, doing what you're saying, smiling, doing this thing. And inside myself, I know I wasn't consciously thinking this, but it was sort of like, what do I do now? Because I do not want to keep being in this numb, smiley, tell my credential kind of state. I'm not feeling or connecting with this person.
Mm-hmm.
So I just stopped and I said, yeah, I took a breath and I said, let me start again there. I said, you asked me a question and I went down this path. I said, I would like to take us down another path. And then I just started again from a place of being in my body again and having acknowledged that part that thought it needed to impress this person and sort of let it do that, but then shift it. And it was, to your point, I think what you're saying is by doing that, it really maybe was even more powerful than if I had started off, and that hadn't happened.
Mm-hmm.
Something happened in that moment.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, they got to see you as a vulnerable, whole human being,
Yeah.
which most of us love to see, especially if we're going to work with someone.
Yeah.
We want to know, can I work with this person through the tough times? And if you're having a moment where you go, I'm going to start again, it's like they've seen what you will be like when the shit hits the fan.
Mm.
And what you did is exactly what I would probably say to someone. And I uh, have a very good friend who introduced me to my husband. She's a singing instructor. The harmonica Z's that we do come from her. And she said the phrase when I was working with her, every breath is a chance to begin again.
Oh, I like that.
And it's true for speaking, for being in a meeting with someone. You can just stop and start over. And that breath, we can take more if we need to take a couple breaths. And it was hugely freeing to know if it feels like I'm totally off on the wrong foot, inhale, take a breath, and choose to go where you'd rather this be going instead of the hamster wheel of like, oh God, I'm performing and I don't want to be.
What's funny as you said that, and I appreciate how you gave the examples, is I realize that when I'm one on one with another human being, I feel, I now feel, I didn't before, I now feel the ability to do that, and can do it fairly easily. I
Mhm.
still really struggle to do it when I'm speaking in a group or being recorded. It feels like you're on a train going one way and it's going at a certain speed and you cannot just say stop. But I love
Mhm.
the reminder that the same principles apply.
Yeah. And the more it's working a new muscle. So it's harder for you right now to do that when you're in a group circumstance or there's a recording button that's gone on. And the more you practice it, the easier it will get, just like it did in the one-on-one situations from the practicing of it.
Of it, just the doing it.
Yeah. It occurred to me that I haven't really said much about inviting. That
Yeah.
used to be connect truly, madly, and deeply with others
Mm.
and take people along for the ride. If I could replace the word take with invite, that was very conscious because take people along for the ride. It was catchy. It served at the time. And the word take is a little bit too much when I look back on it.
Mm.
Like I'm in control of what ride you go on and whether or not you choose to go. And what I know now is I'm holding the space. I'm inviting you. There's an amazing ride of transformation and growth and coming home to yourself. And I'm not taking you.
Mm.
I'm holding a space and you're choosing when to get on that ride. And so it's invite. And I know it includes listening to the nonverbal half of the conversation, that I put the holding space kind of back in the energy piece, hugging the room with your energy, and the people choose when they want to come. I feel like I'm really, really good at that when I'm teaching and giving a speech. And the place that I have learned it more is in the like marketing for my own business.
Mm.
When the I really want to work with you is on the line, that's my NBA finals or Super Bowl. And right in this moment, it feels like I've had a big breakthrough where it's starting to just feel like I'm having conversations with people. And if we choose to work together, we choose to work together. And if we don't, it's, nobody's going to explode.
Yeah.
Nobody's going to die if we don't work together.
Oh, I love that. So it sounds like the the words like the connect madly, deeply, authentically, it's again still all in there, but it is just the letting people find their way into the what it means to like just having the word invite and
Yeah.
then
Yeah. And having the word invite, I feel like it opens everyone up. And if I were teaching other people to do what I do, I would probably bring the truly, madly, deeply back. And sometimes I might even say it to someone. Again, like we've been talking about, when it's in the room, when it looks like they're making eye contact, but it feels like you're connecting, but you're not connecting truly, madly, deeply.
yeah.
Something, and I get curious of like, is there a veil here? What is it that's sort of making it feel like you're connected, but it's not this truly, madly, deeply intimate feeling connected? And I get curious and I just start to play and ask questions and have them try things until all of a sudden there's there it is.
Yeah, it's funny you use the word intimacy is what I was thinking about when it unfolds organically in that way of you invite, hold the container, and they step into it. Is the you feel that intimacy?
Yeah. Yeah. And that's so funny as we're recording this. It's Valentine's Day week. It's almost Valentine's Day tomorrow. And the mini-sode that I released this week was Great Speaking is Intimate.
Oh yeah, I can see that.
Yeah.
Well, you have answered my questions that I was curious about in terms of, and I just so appreciate. I really do feel connected back to the roots of the deeper things that live, the nuances that are there, and then how to hold that into the mantra of intend, align, invite. Was there anything else that we haven't talked about that you wanted to put on the table today?
I don't think so. Well, I will say I am grateful for you bringing your curiosity and doing this experiment. There's a, I am at my best when I'm responding to something that's in the room.
Mm.
So this is a version of that. You saying, "Hey, I'm curious about this," and saying yes when I invited you to come do this. I know there are other people out there who have similar questions, and if I had sat here on my own and just tried to do a solo episode, it would have been a much different experience than responding to your questions, knowing that that will help other people. So
Mm.
thank you for playing and saying yes to this.
I really enjoyed it.